My name is Chief Daniel Hanna, Chief of Police here in New Providence. Mayor Morgan, can you start us off with some words?
Yeah, I just wanted to say yesterday was National Law Enforcement Day, and I want to thank all our law enforcement officers in town. You know, last year we made traffic and pedestrian safety a priority, and Sergeant Diamond and his crew did one hell of a job, I'll say. We brought the community together. We broke the town into quadrants, and we had listening sessions. And I know you made a report up about exactly what everybody wanted, a big wish list, even though some things we weren't able to do and it isn't feasible to do. We put in the report anyway to show people that we were listening. And this year, we did a lot of different things. And I appreciate all the work you did. And you can explain what we did this year and what we're going to be doing in the coming years. Thank you.
Appreciate it. So, as the mayor said, this is it's a big task, right? We're just over 3.5 square miles here in New Providence. There's a lot of roadways, a lot of sidewalks. Infrastructure changes are expensive. I think one thing that I've emphasized over my 23 years here in New Providence is there's responsibility to the taxpayer, there's responsibility to the people that we work with every day to make sure that we're doing things correctly. I know it doesn't always work at the pace that most people want us to work at, but I think that ultimately when these decisions are finally made for these improvements, they're always done that we know retrospectively we can look back and know we did the right things. So tonight's opportunity here, so I think when we established this, the idea was we broke these, as the mayor said, we broke these areas down into quadrants so that nothing got lost in the shuffle. I think ideally that worked. And now that we've created this plan to kind of attack, the revision point that we're at now is, okay, so over the past year, we've done X, Y, and Z, which we'll get into. Through that year, we've also identified some areas that we didn't see over the past year that we want to address. And ultimately, what's still on the list that we need to tackle over the next few years. Ideally, with the public here, we want your input of things that we might be missing, things that you may have seen, strategies that we can attack from the traffic standpoint. And clearly, the process really goes, most often it comes through the police department to vet a lot of this stuff, and then our solutions come through. If there's an engineering issue, we bring the engineering department in. If it's something quick that we can do budgetarily that year, we'll try and do that. And then ultimately, if they're larger projects, we have to plan those out over a couple of years. So, as Sergeant Diamond is the head of our traffic unit, and I can tell you, he spends a lot of time doing this. We have 2 officers dedicated strictly to traffic within our agency that if they're not, addressing either traffic issues, traffic enforcement, guards, crossing issues, we're doing training from, getting ourselves up and running from an education standpoint to where we can properly communicate with everybody in the community, and then attacking really like a long-term vision of how we can improve traffic safety in Providence. So it encompasses all of it. It's not just cars, it's pedestrians, it's bicyclists, it's every aspect of what we do, traversing the roadways here in Providence. So just we'll jump right into it. Some of this stuff hopefully is familiar with everybody because either they've seen it, they lived through it, whatever it is. I'll read it kind of verbatim if there's some explanation. I want this to be as informal as possible. So if you have issues, that you want to bring to our attention, just if we could wait to the end for that stuff. If as we're going along you have questions, please feel free to just shout them out. I think we're all adults here. So this first page is really just kind of policy and ordinance related stuff that we've attacked over the past year related to updating our traffic ordinances, We've implemented a one street a week enforcement where we're trying to get our patrol officers subject to call, our traffic department to really target enforcement and education on any specific street as the weeks progress through 2022. Accessibility on our website to try and put in any information that we can out there that the public wants to see. We've instituted speed table policies, and as many people know, we've had a couple of speed tables that have been installed in the borough. Borough-owned property maintenance really always lends itself to sightline issues. So we did enforcement throughout, especially throughout the growth spring and summer times for homeowners to trim back hedges, to trim back trees. We've had our Department of Public Works also work with us in order to accomplish those goals. Union Avenue truck signage and generally signage throughout the borough, if signs have been faded, need to be cleaned. We've tried to identify those. We've taken a lot of action line requests related to those, and that's like low-hanging fruit stuff for us. So we get out there and do those stuff right away. We are in touch with our counterparts at New Jersey Transit, addressing any of those pedestrian crossings, vehicle crossings within the borough, and having transit coming out to address any needs there. And one big thing too that the borough's big initiative, which if you live in an area of the LED lighting, we're attempting to do all upgrades at either high-impact intersections and all crossings. So the best place to point this out is Mountain and South. If you've been in that intersection at night, you can clearly see the upgrade to an LED light throughout that entire intersection. It's a much brighter light. We're trying to be mindful of the fact that when we put those lights in residential areas, they tend to spill over into the residences, so we're trying to be strategic in how we can do those without disrupting people's lives. So, it hasn't worked. Sometimes we had to do some, JCP&L has had to come out to make some adjustments to those, but that's a significant upgrade to all those lights that we've been seeing throughout the borough. So, any questions related to just policy and stuff that we've changed? No? Okay. Oh, great. So, Nico's getting email classes. I'm going to do this one. We're going to make sure it's as big as possible so we can read it.
Chief, you want to read it here?
It's in front of you.
Might be able to read it.
Yeah.
All right.
Trying to make it as big as I could.
It is.
Okay, so traffic and circulation improvements. So these are completed stuff that we've been able to hit here in 2022.
Chief, sorry, I can probably zoom in, so.
I'm all right, I know you're there. I was like, I turned 40 and I needed glasses, and then I turned 45 and like, I didn't need glasses. So South Street, Central, dedicated lanes. Down the list, you'll see the high school improvements. They kind of go hand in hand. The South Street and Central Avenue dedicated lanes were painted. That's in place. What is not completed as a part of that process, which I don't know if we added in the next slide.
It is in here.
Okay. Was timing of the lights, which we'll get to as a next option for us. So the RFB systems, those are the pedestrian flashings. You get to the light, you hit the button, down the blocks, the lights start flashing. Those are to alert drivers of people trying to cross the street. We made upgrades to Springfield and Pittsford, South Street and Our Lady of Peace, Mountain Avenue at Maple Street, and South Street and Woodland Road. Those are done. There's more coming, and we'll get to those in a minute. An absolute new installation of that type of system was done at South Street and Marion Avenue. We replaced the Springfield Avenue speed beacons for anybody who sends their kids to Saltbrook. Those speed beacons are at the field. There's one real close to Springfield Avenue, and there's two on Springfield Avenue approaching Maple Street. Those were all upgraded. Tall Oaks has seen some traffic calming initiatives that we've done, striping and updated signage. We know that roadway has increased traffic related to, is it directly related to Google Maps or mapping systems? It's possible, but we do know that has become somewhat of a cut-through street, and we're trying to do some traffic calming measures there. Some of the most highly recognizable things is the high school pattern. If anybody sends their kids to middle school or high school, you're living through that upgrade in that area right now. I think that is been a success story for us in our thoughtfulness in trying to make pedestrian contact minimized, vehicle flow a little bit better. While it's queuing, there's a lot of queuing that takes place there. There's less time spent trying to get in and out of that property, and safety was really paramount there. Central Avenue improvements include the installation of the pedestrian beacon system at Balcom Road, right off of the high school entrance. We've done a speed limit reduction, and we've done striping over at that location. Magnolia traffic calming, which is the street right off of Central Avenue. The installation of speed tables, traffic pattern change. The intersection of Valentine Road and Magnolia used to have a stop sign there. We've provided the right of way, what appears to be the natural right of way to Valentine Road for that situation there, and installing the stop sign at Magnolia. Striping and crosswalk signage has also been added to that street. That street was also paved, I think, in 2020.
Sorry.
For our, anybody who utilizes Robert School, you know that we've done the sidewalk installation in between the circle pathway. That's going to, not only does it have advantages to dropping off kids, but in the winter time if we ever get snow this winter, it should assist with trying to keep that flow as clean as possible. Woodbine Circle is another traffic issue for anybody who's utilized Oakwood Park. You're well aware of, it's the only entrance into that park, and it's a heavy use facility, so it does create a lot of traffic there. We've installed a flashing stop sign that you may have seen there, striping, and we've done some striping down at Oakwood Park in order to facilitate better usage of that area. So what do we still have on our list that's in progress? We have here 2023. The caveat is I can't guarantee that this stuff will be done in 2023, but they're recognized areas that we want to attack from a traffic improvement side. We know that we do have upgrades coming, similar pedestrian beacons at Livingston and Ridgeview on Springfield Avenue. They're going to be turned into LED systems. If you haven't noticed them, they're brighter. They operate more efficiently than our previous units that were there. So it was an initiative for us to put better equipment out there, and we're getting that done through the budget process. Central and Valentine will see an installation of a rapid flashing beacon system that'll be done. We were trying to get it done at the end of 2022. I think we missed the opportunity with concrete work and the like, so that likely won't get done until the springtime. South Street and Central Avenue signal timing, it kind of goes back to the dedicated left turn lanes that are there now. Inevitably, our engineering department needs to do a traffic study in the turning there in order to make a determination as to how we will delay green those intersections. So we won't be installing left turn dedicated arrows. So we will just install delayed greens at 2 of the 4 intersections. I think in my mind's eye, I think they know what they're going to be, but the engineer's got to tell us what they're going to be. So, advanced warning for the school zones. This is an initiative that we just, we want to make sure, a lot of our stuff, stems from safe routes to school. So, we always kind of start school and then we start to march back from the school, right? So, inevitably we want those school zones to be as safe as possible. So as many advanced warning signs to those school signs that we can do, we're going to try and attack those. Division Avenue driver feedback signage, that's been a big initiative throughout the borough. They're costly, so we have to do those incrementally. And we really want to do those in areas that we know have speeding problems. Pittsford, Elkwood, both are going to see signage updates. Pearl Street's going to see striping on that street in order to artificially try and slow traffic down there. Sidewalk gap evaluations are a big thing. The borough's taken the appropriate steps to always be fixing and adding a little bit more sidewalks on the borough's budget every year that we can accomplish that. So with sidewalk gap evaluations, we're trying to look at where are people walking and where are we missing sidewalks that connect people to those things. There's definitely been an emphasis on dual-sided sidewalks on our busy streets, Central Avenue, Springfield Avenue, South Street. Anywhere that we don't want people crossing if they don't have to, we're gonna try to accommodate that. It's not as simple, and I can tell you just anecdotally, going out to do a safe routes inspection, we're in some areas that we're looking to add sidewalks, it seems on paper, or Google Street View, and to say, oh, it's easier to add sidewalks there, but when you actually start walking out there and you see slopes, and you see obstructions, and you start talking about taking out trees that have been in these areas for 60, 70, 100 years, it's not as simple as a task to just do it, and then clearly the community sometimes pushes back on some of those initiatives, right? So, but the best way we can add sidewalks, we do, because the community is becoming more walker friendly, right? Union Ave Klein, Chevron installations, Union and Pearl Chevron upgrades. Chevrons are those yellow signs with the arrows that point you in a certain direction. Those installations will be coming on Union Avenue, hopefully in the coming months. Purchase of additional inside road pedestrian signs. We've seen those in the roadway. They're usually at pedestrian crossings. We take them out at this time of the year because of plowing issues, but we put them back in the early spring. They're just advance warnings, and we're going to redeploy those to make sure that we're getting the most out that we possibly can. And then Central Avenue to Fairmount sidewalk. Part of that gap, the sidewalk gap evaluation, we do recognize that from Springfield Avenue to Fairmount, there's a gap there that we could fill in to keep pedestrians on both sides of the roads without having to cross. So recommendations for evaluation, for additions to the evaluation. So these are things that during the course of the year either popped up, we recognized further problems that we wanted to add to our plan for advisement going forward. So we think that we need more rapid flashers at South Street and High and on Union Avenue. Union Avenue is its own little animal that we're trying to work with a section of Union Avenue to get kids down to Robert School as safely as possible. Initially, there was some discussion just about rapid flashers. Now there's some discussion about sidewalks. We're trying to just do the best we can to figure out what's the biggest bang for the bucks for the borough's budget in order to accomplish that. Oakwood Park it will continue to be an area that we'll have to address. So there will be some additional neighborhood signage that we'll have to do over there. Mountain Avenue division evaluations are going to be done with the county. That's particularly towards that intersection. You know, I hate saying the old cliche about, well, it's a county road, county problem. The county gives us some autonomy to do some things on county roads, but inevitably we just can't act unilaterally without the county approving anything. So we do try and work hand in hand with them. It's just we have to work at the pace that the county provides us with. So sidewalk installation evaluation. So one of the things that came out of changing Union Avenue, the high school, is alternative drop points, which have always been a hot topic for us of like, hey, don't just go to the high school. Like there's places that are close to the high school that you can drop. Well, parents are now utilizing those. So, but that also means that the areas that they are utilizing, Valentine Road and Union Avenue, Valentine Road and Coddington area is one particular area. The Mean Lane Bridge that connects to the high school has become a very popular drop-off point. So the installation of sidewalks has some emphasis in that area. Union Avenue, Hillary Place to Klein Boulevard, as we discussed with the Union Avenue RFB installations, we're trying to, as I say, we're trying to figure out what's in the best interest of that long term for us in that area. And then lastly, the Central Avenue Livingston intersection. That's a railroad crossing. It's a neglected railroad crossing. It's out of compliance from a railroad standpoint. New Jersey Transit's, it's difficult to coordinate that effort. It takes a lot of resources, there's state resources, transit gets involved. So if you live in that area and you know that intersection, you know, we pay Central Avenue, we pay Livingston Avenue, and then there's the intersection, right? It just kind of lives by itself there. So, but it's not something, it's definitely something that we want to put in our project going forward. Just that's probably a really long-term project for us. A couple of grants and projects in progress that we have, and these are generally Union County initiatives that we work hand in hand with. Mountain Avenue and Diamond Hill Road improvements, probably some time down the road, the intersection itself will be reimagined. We haven't seen any plans, we don't know exactly what it is, but to some degree it probably will be a change to that ramp that comes onto Mountain Avenue off of Diamond Hill Road, but it could be more encompassing. It's really a county project that will work with us and Berkeley Heights because that one quarter belongs to Berkeley Heights. Mountain Avenue and South Street will probably see some improvements from the county, and South Street and Central Avenue, while we made the turning lanes there, we will do likely a delayed green in those intersections. The county has put this intersection on its radar for redevelopment. So that could lead to long-term left turn and right turn changes, widening the intersection. It remains to be seen, and there's absolutely no timeline for any of that. So, but we do know it's in the queue. So that's a pretty much summary of what we had in 2022. What we think we needed to add based upon what we did in 2022. What we know we have on our timeline for 2023 and going forward. And really, I just want to bring everybody here up to speed and turn the floor over to our residents. If you could just identify yourself, so.
Sure, my name is Phil Tolman.
Tolman?
Tolman, T-U-L-L-M-A-N. I live at 11 Mount Avenue, which is, as it happens, on the corner of Division. I've been living there for 15 years, and in the last 3 years, 2 cars have ended up in my front lawn, on my front lawn, because they couldn't navigate that turn coming from Mount Avenue at Division. The situation was if somebody had been standing there, there'd be somebody dead. At this point, it's only a matter of time. My neighbor is here, he's got 2 young children who often spend time on my lawn. I'm oftentimes out of my front lawn chipping golf balls, and had I been standing there when these cars came up, I'd be dead. Yes, right now, it happened last week. In fact, I got a form right here which I filled out. I still haven't seen it online yet because I'm going to have to find it. It's going to be damaged again. Second time now, I put trees up on that corner like 3 times. And so there's a couple things. First of all, there's no signage there. There's one sign. There's one yellow sign with a black arrow that tells you there's a turn coming up. I don't care if you're tired, if you're drunk, if you're in anyhow not in the best shape that you should be driving, that's an easy turn to miss. And I had the tire tracks on my lawn to prove it. So I want to know what's going to be done on that corner. Another time it happened coming up about 5 years ago, a car was driving up, some drunk kids with vodka bottles, open vodka bottles in the car, driving up Division Avenue. They ended up on my side lawn. Surprisingly, nobody's dead yet. I can't believe nobody died in that car because they ended up right between a tree and a telephone pole with both of the side mirrors gone. But somehow the car made it through. So I want to know what you guys are going to do. I mean, I know that Mountain Avenue is a county road, but when somebody dies, they don't care what road it's on. They don't care if it's a Union Avenue road, if it's a county road, if it's a town road. It's a dangerous road, and it's especially dangerous for me and anybody who lives in that corner. So there's got to be some type of barrier put up. There certainly has to be more signage, and I'm hoping that the town has some plans to put some type of barrier to stop these cars from barreling onto my lawn. Come to my lawn now, you'll see car parts strewn all over my front yard.
So, to address just a couple issues, more globally, so we're not here to problem solve tonight, okay? We're here to hear your concerns, which your concerns are being heard. I want you to understand that. No, I totally agree with that. I'm not dismissing that. But we don't have the answer tonight,
I
right?
don't expect you to.
Okay. So, a couple of things too, that I just know, that there's a lot of people think that there are a lot of easy fixes. Lighting and guardrailing is a thing that we hear a lot, right, related to traffic safety. They're not as simple to accomplish, and one is lighting restrictions, while they sometimes help the homeowner, they don't necessarily help the neighborhood. So, not to say that that's not an answer, but whether it's, and I'm not saying that this is the answer, but flashing lights, directing somebody to a certain direction, there's less of an emphasis on that in residential neighborhoods. Guardrails are subject to DOT approval, and they have to be engineered, and they have to be brought up to compliance every single time there's anything done on the roadway. So that's why generally you see guardrailing being done on major thoroughfares.
Quite honestly, we would prefer that they don't put a guardrail up because they're unsightly. But maybe put like a boulder or something up on the corner to keep these cars from coming into my property, because if you guys don't do it, I'm gonna do it myself.
So I can tell you that, and this is an uncommon request for bouldering. Bouldering creates an unsafe hazard for the drivers. So
If a guy's drunk enough to drive up in my yard, it's his problem. If I'm standing in the yard and he drives up on me, is that my problem? It shouldn't be, it would be, but it's his problem. If a guy's making that turn and can't make it, you know, what is the alternative? If you're not gonna put up a guardrail, there's gotta be something that's gonna keep these people from driving up into my yard.
there could be some sort of amenable answer for this. I would like to believe that regardless of the actions of the driver, there could just be a reckless driver looking at their phone in the middle of the day who may miss that
I don't
turn.
disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
And if there was something coming up on my yard, again, it would be his problem. A couple of years ago, there was a woman driving on the road. I heard his noise, barreling, you know. I look out my front yard, and there's an SUV on its roof. And the woman amazingly opened the door and got out of the car. It's unbelievable that nobody, I've been living there for 15 years now. It's amazing to me that nobody has died in that corner the time I've been living there. I have seen at least 6 major accidents happen on that corner, where anybody easily could have died. It's amazing that none of the drivers have died, and it's lucky, just damn luck that nobody was standing there when these things happen. So this is something that, you know, and I understand that you have to get the county involved with this, but this is something that needs to be looked at, and it needs to be looked at. Last week it just happened, here's the report right here. You know, so
I'm
this is
well aware,
something,
yeah.
you know, I understand that you have a lot of problems in town that you need to look at.
No, this is part of the problem. But Mr. Trump, I will tell you that that's on our in-progress list. The county's coming out, and we are going to evaluate that intersection, and that's happening this week. So
Are you there when the county comes out?
you're more than welcome to be there. I can't tell you exactly when they're coming. Well, we can reach out to you and let you know.
Well, I'm gonna be in California for the next 2 weeks, so. Well, maybe I'm not, because they're all flooded out there now.
Okay.
Anyway,
Your concerns are understood. I know the intersection well. So, we get it. We'll put it on the list. Okay?
Hi, Tim Townsend, Phil's neighbor and friend, and thanks so much for your presentation and showing us what's in progress. And I can appreciate all the different moving parts that go into getting anything done. As a resident of Tall Oaks, I've already witnessed firsthand the improvement to the traffic on Tall Oaks Drive. That, you know, that was like, I think, a relatively modest traffic improvement that my kids who ride their bikes to and from Saltburg every day themselves have noticed that drivers seem to have slowed down a little bit, you know, which is better than not at all. I do want to echo what Phil has said. In the time since I've been his neighbor, going on 3.5 years now, I've seen 3 different vehicles totaled from that intersection. All of them happen to be at night. And I realize you just said that the county is coming out to evaluate that. Could I just ask you a couple questions related to that? One, did that process just start with this last collision onto Mr. Tolman's yard, or is this something that has been ongoing?
So there's always a reason for improvements to be made, right? And while we can identify some that are easy, and a lot of them are related to speed and crash data, sometimes perspective matters, right? So when a homeowner brings it to our attention like, hey, listen, we really need to pay better attention here. The New Providence sign that's there is just not good enough. The trees that have grown here haven't grown the way we want them to grow. There's still gaps in here. We feel as though we want to be safe within this avenue, our area. While all of that matters, we have to look at it holistically, and what's the obligation for us to act upon this? Because I live on Central Avenue, I live here in town, right? I mean, I can attest to crashes that take place. I was involved in a police car with lights and sirens going at the intersection of Central and Maple Street. So I would say that I know firsthand of these issues that take place. Some of them are egregious, right? That people get passionate about and they want action immediately. But sometimes the data doesn't support it. So how do we kind of come to agreement with both, right? Because in some respect, some of the asks are very expensive, right? And in some respect, it's something that we can try and mitigate some level of, future potential issues, but we can't. We can't mitigate all of them. It's just the nature of how it works. So we're doing our best to accomplish it all in a holistic approach throughout the borough. So in this particular instance, it's not, I've seen crashes at this, at this location before. The circumstances behind the crashes, we can talk about them all day, but I don't think it's relevant, honestly. A crash is a crash is a crash, whether the person's intoxicated, whether they're looking at their phone, or whether they just didn't know that the road went left, right? But if we can make improvements, let's make improvements. Some of the stuff might just be signage, some of it might be plantings. I don't know what the answer is, but in this type of situation, we definitely want to have our engineers involved with it because of the complexity of the way the road lies there.
All right, so I appreciate that, and I just wanted to know, did the county's involvement just start with this latest incident on
No,
Forest Yard?
no.
Or is this has been something that had been planned prior to that?
The county has been paying special attention to Mountain Avenue, I would probably say, over the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, the county's definitely, they've been involved over there.
So the county is looking at all of Mountain Avenue in New Providence, from Diamond Hill to Division, right? Whether it's because of what's going on with Lantern Hills development, whether it's going on potentially at Nokia, whatever their reasoning is, they've been paying attention to Mountain Avenue over the past few years. So
Well, this is probably one of the reasons, and the truth of the matter is, if somebody had been killed in one of these accidents, you'd be damn sure they'd be here a lot quicker, so why wait until that happens? I'm not trying to be smart. I understand you guys have restrictions, I understand you have a lot of other, you have a lot of things that you have to deal with. But
this is not going to be the
very
right.
personal for me.
But I just want to tell you, this is not going to be an answer that you're going to like, right? But the fact of the matter is we average less than 1 fatality here a year, okay? Now, I'm not saying that we're waiting for it to happen on your property,
Well, but it sounds like they are.
but statistically, and this is what we have to look at. We have to look at statistics, and we have to look at what's the proper decisions to be made here. And I'm not saying that it's not important, but I'm saying that we can do things to try and make the improvements, but statistically, we have to look at what may potentially cause more of a problem down the road for us.
I understand that, but this has been going on for years, sir.
And Dan,
And the truth of the matter is, can anybody else in this lawn raise their hands? If anybody else in this room, has anybody had a car come up on that lawn? Anybody? Has anybody in town had that happen? I've had it happen twice in 3 years.
I know Union Avenue,
Yeah.
so here on Union and Klein.
Yeah, there was actually this thing I wanted to ask about. I noticed that Union Avenue is a town road, correct? Or that's not a county road, right?
This will work, yeah.
And is that why you were able to reduce the speed limit? I noticed that within the last year, the speed limit went from, was it 35 down to 25?
That would help too on that.
And the feedback signs are there. It seems, as a driver, I notice.
There's a feedback sign so conversely, and I don't want this, I want to be respectful of everybody's position here. There's a feedback sign on Mountain Avenue where we've identified the biggest speeding problem on Mountain Avenue in that area, and that's headed eastbound towards Summit. That's why there's a speed feedback sign there. There's not one on the other side because the speed doesn't necessitate that. So that's what we look at, that we do the traffic studies, we look at the statistics, and we say, hey, this is where we should be focusing our energies. And in this particular, it could be, like I said, it could be signage, it could be landscaping, I'm not sure. It's likely not bouldering, like I said. It's likely not guardrailing, it's likely not lighting, but if we can do some improvements, we're gonna try.
Well, if you can't do any of those three, then what's the alternative? Should I?
I think I just laid them out for you.
You just said it can't be bouldering, it's likely not bouldering, it's likely not going.
We're gonna have to wait
it's
for
likely
the engineers to look at it, and really that's the net of it. The engineers will look at it, we'll have the county engineers come and look at it, and we'll make a determination.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and again, I'm not trying to put your feet to the fire, but this is now the third time in 3
We
years.
understand, we
It's
are
a real
hearing you.
problem for me and my family, and Tim and his kids, and anybody who comes on my lawn. It's a real problem that needs to have attention, and this happened a week ago, it happened 3 years ago, it happened 4 years ago, and 5 years ago. This is a recurring problem, and for nobody to having taken a look at this now, you're telling me now that the Union County's involved. Well, where the hell were they 5 years ago? Why do you have to wait
You know
until
what?
somebody gets killed? If that's what it's gonna come to,
Dan?
that's what's gonna happen on that corner.
Dan, when you get the engineers, give me a call, and I'll go out there
And
with
I'm
you.
sorry again, I'm not.
And we'll, maybe,
I don't wanna take up the whole meeting, I've said my piece, but I think something needs to be done ASAP.
I'll talk to the freeholders too, and we'll talk to Joe Graz, and so,
And if you need
I
to-
should say commissioners.
They'll be here this week.
If I
Yeah.
can give my input to the county, I'm happy to do that too.
Yeah,
Did you have anything else?
No, I just noticed that action was taken on Union Avenue, and I realized that part of the streamlining that must have been because it's a New Providence road. I just want to make sure that your
that's correct.
connections with the county are open and that,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that the urgency of this, from our point of view, is communicated to the county. Because honestly, from our perspective, this is relatively transparent, relatively close-knit community. The county has a lot of other considerations, and it's great to sit here and say, okay, you guys got it with the county, and then, all right, the engineers are coming within a week, great, but when will we hear back from you based on what the engineers assess? How long does their report take? And when will we be hearing back from you about what the engineers have to say?
So, the short answer is, I don't know, right? I can't tell you, like, this is a week or a month or, we could do is just gather your information, and as we get proper notification from the county as to what, it could be something that they just hand off to us, right? And say, hey, do this, do that, from an ordinance standpoint or a speed limit, let's say, issue. Most oftentimes, the county can concur with changes related to law, if that makes sense, right? It really becomes an issue of cost. So then, if they haven't cost a project out in their budget cycle, then nothing will get done likely within that year until the next budget cycle. So I don't know what that means for this intersection, and it's really, I don't have an answer for what we're gonna do. It's really more of listening to their perspective and their expertise to try to figure it out. Okay. I know it's not a great answer, but it's the best one.
I think it's important that you guys know, we do have a very good working relationship with the county and with the county DPW department and with their engineers. So we hear you. This is not something that we're taking lightly either. We've started the process, we'll get to a resolution, and we'll keep you guys in the loop.
Thank you.
Chief, I want to thank you first for a great presentation. I know how hard the department's working on this, and it's good for the community. I also want to thank you for providing this forum tonight to hear some thoughts from the community. One of the things I'd like to hear some of your initial thoughts, and I'm realizing that nothing's solved tonight, and that you're also realizing that this is a county road, is when we talk Springfield Avenue and South Street, particularly in our downtown area. I think it's clearly evident that, we have increased development in the area, as is just about everywhere in the state. We're going to have increased traffic flow. I think it's safe to say, or some of my observations, I'm sure, and I've heard from others, and I'm sure you have as well, making a left out of our shopping plazas is becoming increasingly more difficult, if not scary at times. I'm talking about making a left out of Starbucks, let's say, or on South Street. I'm particularly concerned with mid-block crossings I see all over the place. Whether it's across from the diner, whether it's across from, let's say, I don't know, Barf's, whether it's by Starbucks, people darting across the road. I know that a couple of years ago, a change was made to have on-street parking, which I think was good, because I understand that as a traffic calming device by doing that, but at the same time, you're seeing people dart out between the cars. In addition, quite frankly, during Halloween time, we have scarecrows there, so you're literally driving downtown like this, braced, and you're looking at that scarecrow, that person who's dropped, and you really have to be on heightened alert. Now, while I think many residents are when they go through our downtown, just sitting on an afternoon observing, as I do many times, especially, a bus going through it, I worry about someone who's not from the area, thinking that's an area they can just blow through on a Saturday. You can't. You gotta be real careful, because there's so many outlets and in and out of shopping plazas. So, I really think the time has come where we have to give some, and I'm sure you're already giving it some really good thought on whether it's traffic calming measures or maybe changing some of what's permitted and what's not permitted. I've driven by center of towns where you've seen an entire major intersection where you have an elevated intersection. I don't know if it's called a traffic table or what that's called, where you're literally going up over, let's say, the entire downtown cross center, and then you come back down, just to kind of alert people that you're going through a center of town. Crosswalks that are, rumble strip, brick pavers, just something to slow things down. Again, realizing we're dealing with the county, but I think these are important conversations to have. I want to hear some of your initial thoughts.
Yeah, and I think also too, to add to that, the planning board has authority over the downtown, more specifically the Village Shopping Center, where a large portion of our downtown businesses are located. There's no development that's done there that doesn't ask for input from the police department as it relates to whether traffic, pedestrian, parking, whatever it may or may not be. And we do evaluations on all those plans and make our recommendations. Ultimately, the planning board is a board of citizens making decisions of what's in the best interest of the borough, right? So we hope that they're heeding our advice, and then oftentimes they are. I think from the perspective of the attempts to slow the population down, I am a firm believer that adding the parking downtown, while you do get people that are in between cars, it does present itself people to drive slower through that area. There's an old saying that you live at 25, getting hit by a car, you live at 25, you die at 35, right? So anytime that we can try and do speed reductions, we can. We make those attempts. We are restricted as to the types of roadway improvements, whether they be speed tables or rumble strips, with related to the speed of the roadway. So we have to take those into consideration, and most oftentimes those advance warnings aren't applicable because they're only applicable in areas that are 25 miles an hour.
Where do you see opportunities, though?
Opportunities.
Opportunities for improvement?
I'm of the mindset that traffic should be controlled downtown by signage. I think that restricting left-hand turns I don't particularly love the left-hand turn onto South Street out of the Village Shopping Center. I think probably most residents in New Providence know, don't make that left turn out of the shopping center, and they go towards Springfield Avenue to make the right. I know that's not a great answer for those who live on the west side of town that gotta get over there, but when you have an ingress and egress of only 2 spots on a very heavily traversed property, it's difficult to control that. I don't know if adding, say, a traffic signal on South Street would be the answer. There's a huge cost associated with that, but I know that's been discussed probably for the past 15 years of adding something to South Street. Those are opportunities, and we do see, South Street is probably our biggest corridor. I was on the planning board for years. I know that you can anticipate a 3% growth in traffic every single year. We've seen that growth on South Street. The people who are avoiding the highways are traversing, let's say, from the southern side of the reservation, and they may need to travel to Florham Park or Morristown to go to work. They're utilizing South Street as that avenue of escape. So, yeah, I think we're restricted from, just from town design. I don't think anybody's going to eminent domain anybody's front lawns and widen South Street to a 4-lane road. So we have to work within those confines.
To elaborate a little, years ago, we did ask for traffic lights from the county on both entrances to the shopping center, and we were denied. Engineering-wise, they said no. Now, we have in the past few years, we even did have a traffic study in to put a traffic light at Gales and try and time that so you'd have a big break in traffic between Springfield Avenue and Gales so people can get out. But the county hasn't reacted yet, and I've been asking, so that's where we're at with the lights.
Yeah, Mayor, that's an excellent point, and I think the point I was trying to make is I think we're seeing changes in, you mentioned 3% growth. I think with the increased development, you're going to see more than 3% growth. And you're right, it's a dangerous combination of people, local shoppers, people moving around, as well as people from out of town that are blasting through to maybe get to 78. So your point is very well taken, Mayor, and perhaps we could push that or revisit that with the county, because I think things have maybe changed and increased in intensity.
Sure.
Yeah, right in front of Bart's, that stretch of south, is that 25 miles per hour? Or is it 30?
No, it's 30 miles an hour.
It's 30. Okay, for some reason I thought that stretch was 25.
I think
I'm sorry,
all approaches
South Street is 35.
Not in front of ours.
Correct. No, it's 35. Springfield Avenue from the pool,
It's
from
30.
correct to Jane is
Right
30.
inside town is 30.
35 on South Street.
On Springfield, I don't know for certain, our traffic guy is saying that where you're talking about is 35,
That's south,
on South Street.
Correct.
right?
By
right in front
Bart's.
of Bart's.
Correct.
Okay, that seems fast. And so does the downtown. 30 is fast. It should be 25. If you look at Summit, all of their downtown is 25. It's
But
easy
that's
for
not
the
a county
driver
road.
to stop when they
It
see a
is, so-
pedestrian.
No, Springfield
And
Avenue
even if
isn't.
they go faster, they go 30.
512 goes
When you have a
down
30,
Broad,
they
Morris
go
Avenue.
35.
It's a county road, they made them take over
So-
all maintenance.
so
If
I
you go
think
below
that this-
30 miles an hour on a county road, you're
You
required, you
don't
have to
need
take
to
over all
put
maintenance.
extra
So that's why
signage because
Uh-huh.
It has to be approved by
I believe
engineers.
that New Providence is already overfilled with signs, especially the downtown. There's so many signs everywhere. And when spring comes, there's
I can speak to
there's
it.
those business signs, that it's like it's everywhere.
It is, yeah, ultimately, it
It's
is.
hard to see some signs.
So we're 30
So
on Springfield.
I don't disagree with you, it's something that we can definitely add to the list to do some traffic studies on the downtown approach and see whether or not 25 makes better sense. Just
There's,
for understanding, we don't just arbitrarily say, oh, this should be this number.
No,
There's
I-
charts that say like, with this what percentage, based upon speed surveys, time of day, they say that this is what your speed should be. What's interesting is often they're counter to what people believe it should be. So I get it, not everybody's a speed expert, and they think everybody's going really, really fast. And then in reality, when we show them the data, they're not. But I don't disagree that downtown should be slow.
I've taken, I test sometimes and I do drive 25 just to see how it feels and how, what happens with the cars in front of me. And I will tell you that if I drive 25, the cars coming out of the shopping plaza, they have the time to come out and there's no rush and I will do this because I'm not speeding.
You shouldn't do that, just so you know.
What?
It's not your responsibility
To
to let people out of the driveway.
No,
Oh.
but they have the time because I'm driving
Okay.
25.
Oh, I thought you were mentally
Oh, no, I'm
coming
not
to a stop to
stopping.
let them out.
I'm not stopping, no.
Okay, go ahead.
So if I could just add a little bit to this, we did do a traffic study in the downtown area, speed study in conjunction with the County of Union. The average end 85th speeds, and they're posted on our website under the speed studies, were actually below 25 miles an hour. The county rule is that if a municipality has a county road running through it and they request and go through the motions to lower the speed limit below 30 miles an hour, that municipality has to take over all maintenance of the roadway. So we did keep that in mind when we evaluated, looking at the study, talking it over with the borough engineer, Kevin, when he was here. So we have evaluated that. However, and I'm looking at our website right now, those documents are available on our website. in the traffic section, you can take a look. The average speed and 85th percentile were below. So, it's like a double-edged sword there. So if I can just add that for,
So you're saying that, the town would be responsible with what?
the town's required, they're
Paving,
responsible for maintenance, everything.
Curbing,
Snow
plowing,
plowing.
all of
Leaf
this, all the things
collection.
that we don't pay for right now because we send that money to the county, right? So that's a service that we get back. We would be responsible for that stuff. So-
And what the study
For-
is saying is
for-
that cars
for
are already
five-
going
yeah.
less than that, so
The
why change
reality
the
is
speed?
cars are going less than
Yeah.
25
That's what the service.
for the most part downtown. 85% of the vehicles, actually I can, talking South Street.
So in essence, we're getting compliance without actually having the rule in place.
Putting the sign
Yeah.
up?
And if we're getting the compliance, then we can let the county plow our roads and repave them every few years.
Then yet,
I think
it's
we do that,
congestion.
Congestion's a whole other issue, yeah.
Right, I have not noticed that people are going 30. So, that,
So the 85th percentile was
When
20,
was that
20,
survey?
okay.
22 miles an hour.
When was this study done?
Last year.
This was done in front of Bank of America, so both lanes of travel. 85th percentile was 22. The average speed in that area was 13 miles an hour.
What year was the study done?
2021.
During the pandemic?
Well, hold on,
No.
not to blame the pandemic, but also remember, all those people who no longer were working in the city were now here driving in Providence. So our traffic
We're not driving at all.
But in 2021, they were driving.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
late 2021.
2021.
Our traffic
trying to
increased
find the data.
substantially in 2021.
Kids were already
I
back.
guess
School
why
kids were
would
back.
they do that study right in front of the bank, which is like a half a block from the light? Of course the traffic's gonna be traveling slow at that point. They're either coming for the light or going to the light.
But that-
That's not a good place to conduct that study. What they should have done was do it in front of bars.
That is.
Bank of America's not in front of bars.
I'm sorry. The bank, Wells Fargo.
Wells Fargo.
It's not Bank of America. I'm sorry.
Okay.
My mistake.
You understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, so we did them Passaic Street at Colonial, in front of, literally right at the edge of Barth's and the bank, just prior to the diner, and at the Starbucks driveway. That's where the devices were installed.
Hold on one second, Rupert had a question.
Rebecca Hill, 35 Delaware Avenue. I just want to say thank you for the presentation. If you could please put that on the website so it can be shared with the community, that would be great, because lots of people are going to ask questions for people who can't be here today. Could you touch upon a little bit on the potential of putting in sidewalk on the west side from Central to Fairmont, because I see that it's upcoming on the plan, which excites me because that's the big gap. It requires a lot of additional going around, walking or biking to kind of go to school.
Yep.
Kind of have to go to the opposite side. So that's my one thing. The other thing, and I had mentioned this earlier, maybe, I don't know, many months ago. People coming down Central, well, from Chatham, that are coming past the river,
Yep.
they're just flying down. And, like once you get past Charnwood, the road really widens up. They are just flying. I mean, and you kind of come up on a blind spot because the light kind of goes up on an incline, so it is sort of a blind spot. And there's not a lot of lighting down there. There's not enough lighting. I would love to see that addressed. Just in terms of speed also, if there is some way, I don't have a suggestion, but in some way to address the wide road and the speed flying down of cars and coming upon that. Because what's also happening is it's narrow on one side and really wide on the side coming from Chatham. And so the narrow side, the neighbors always have their cars parked out. So traffic going towards Chatham, that's going towards my house, you always have to go onto the other side of Yellow in order to turn or pass those cars. And there's cars flying down constantly. So I would really like to see that addressed.
Yeah, I mean, so kind of twofold there, the gap analysis, that was one of those areas where we saw a connection point There's probably one further down Central Avenue near Coppola's where we see a lot of pedestrian traffic coming out of the hotel, getting over to the, where there's a gap analysis, a gap in sidewalking at that point. From the speed standpoint, from a lighting standpoint, that could just be a matter of identifying the upgrade to lighting on Central Avenue there. And
think there's
just
any
putting that
power
as part of our
facilities.
queue. What's that?
There's no power facilities there.
There's no lights there.
There's no power lines, I don't think,
There's
that
no
run.
poles.
I mean, there's obviously the large high tension, but I think they end at that 1002 Central Ave at
It's
Chartwood.
definitely,
We'll look at it.
Bernadette and I had just actually looked at JCP&L's guide for installing lights.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that, there was another request in another area of town where
Yeah,
people
it's
felt there
really
was a lack
dark
of
and
lighting.
it also curves and there's trees, a lot of blind spots in
I think because there's a cost to light, I mean, lighting's not free, we pay for that lighting
Of course.
in the borough. To light a section of roadway that is all vegetation,
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be
Yeah, I'm not saying necessarily
Further,
going
okay.
further down towards,
just
I'm
closer
talking
to
about
Delaware.
between
Charnwood and Springfield.
Charnwood and Springfield, there's not enough lighting and that wide road and people are just kind of flying down. And also just trying to address the width or, I don't know what the idea would be to slow the traffic down there.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
That definitely is a constant ongoing issue.
Yeah,
Because
that's
what
the point.
also happens is people come and they go into our they come flying down our cul-de-sac and make like that U-turn and go, this is like a constant issue, right? Where it's a dead end, but people come flying down and go, and I don't know why it happens, but it's constantly happening. I think just addressing some of the speed there could, because it's wide open from the point you leave River Road until you get to Springfield, everybody's just flying. And it's kind of on the edge of town, so like nobody's really, there's no police there really to look at it.
How about speed bumps?
County road, right?
Speed bumps on Central Avenue?
Can't.
No,
there's-
it's not a county road, but
Traffic
it's 40
fire.
miles an hour down that side, so.
Yeah,
wouldn't
you
be able
can't.
to do this. Yeah. He just had his hand. What's that? Yeah, go ahead.
To go back to the Central and Springfield intersection, so I understand there's going to be from Fairmount to up to the other intersection is going to be sidewalk.
That's what we're gonna evaluate.
Okay.
Yeah.
That corner that does not have the sidewalk, but there is
At Central or down by Fairmont?
Central and,
Springfield.
Okay.
It has a little crossing.
yeah, there's like a little
A landing
They
landing.
spot.
just built that,
That-
like
that-
maybe a year.
That's an ADA
The
requirement.
curb
There-
cut, yeah.
There's a little landing where a person can stand, but you can cross, as a pedestrian, you can cross the crossing on all four ways. When a car comes from Berkeley Heights, you can turn right on red.
Mhm.
Okay, if a person is standing there, what you do is, when you come up to the light, you turn to see if somebody's coming from
Berkeley.
well, not.
No, from Chatham.
From your,
Chatham.
yeah, from Chatham.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you automatically start turning, not noticing that
Yeah.
there's somebody standing right
That's in
there
every intersection.
That's,
and about to walk out. That intersection is very dangerous.
Yeah,
Please look at it.
It's true.
Yeah, that's a big issue for us too. And part of the reason why I'm asking but my kids are forbidden to go to that corner because it is a blind spot where you kind of you don't see people or it's just, because of the angle, it also just creates a blind spot.
And
It's-
especially if
well,
you're
just
in a
understand though-
taller vehicle, no way you're able to see somebody there.
Adding sidewalks doesn't change that.
No, it
Okay.
doesn't.
All right. I just want to make sure that we understand, like,
Yeah.
it's just another
That's
way to
also
traverse
drive for
from the far side of Central
Oh, yeah.
over to the other side.
No,
But-
no, no,
No,
it will
understood.
not.
Yep.
It will not change the fact that you will be invisible in that spot.
Yep.
Because you can turn on right and you're looking down if there's any cars coming this way. Because they have green and they can go down this way, so you're concerned that, you're more concerned about the cars there. Am I free to go? Yeah, so I'm turning. And this person can already come out in the road.
If I may?
If I just can,
Yeah, I was just going to say something about that, but that's fine.
Yeah,
I have more things, so.
go ahead.
Mine's nothing about that.
No, that's fine. I was trying to go in order.
That's fine. My name is Nick Schultz, and I pass through the intersection of South and Central. I live on the corner of Candlewood and South Street, so I have to take a left out of CVS. But I pass through the intersection of South and Central at least once a day. The left turn lanes in there are long overdue. I will say that's one of the best damn things this town has ever done. I am so happy with it. What I'd like to do is encourage the city to do further planning on what I consider a lot of these stupid intersections that splinter into 2 lanes, which encourages drag racing at every light. I know a lot of people who plan and leave this town have lived here most of their lives. I have not. I've been here about a decade. I came here from Texas. And I have never come upon an intersection where it would split and one's not a left turn lane or a dedicated right turn lane. I got into almost so many accidents when I moved to this town because people are just head to head and then they go on who can bump the other guy out of the way first. It's dangerous. And I was about to go sit out in that corner and do my own study and come to council with my results. And one day my wife tells me that Al had posted on Facebook that this new intersection was coming up, and I was jumping up and down. It has helped me tremendously. I drop my daughter off at AWR, I come right across it that way. I go down from South Street to downtown. I'm constantly crossing that intersection. I'm going to do it on my way home tonight. That is wonderful. I would like to encourage more of that at these different intersections, some of them being Central and Springfield there. It splits. Why? All that does is encourages 2 people side by side to gun it, and who can bump the other guy off the road. So, I wanted to give positive feedback on that one intersection. That's really the main reason I'm here. I wanted to shout that across the room to somebody that I appreciate that and love it. But I would like to see more of that in this town. Because I think that definitely helps on turning, and it also helps on judging when that guy's coming at you. If they're in the center lane, you know they're going to turn left, and you go ahead and safely turn left. Before on South Street, going on to Central, heading to the farmer's market, you had to sit there and guess, and then you're watching the guy come all the way down, and then all of a sudden the light's about to turn, and he stops to turn left. You're like, well, hell, I could have gone. So I would love to see more of that. I encourage more of it. I want to personally thank everybody who had anything to do with that because I love it.
I'll take all the credit for it. Thank you. It was my idea. I brought it here before I even started with it.
May I add something about, I have a number of other things, but I'd like to just mention about the right turn on red. And just an observation, I ride my bike a lot in this town, and I can tell you that it's a major problem with people frequently not even slowing down, besides the ones who go through the red lights. But there are a lot of infractions of the right turn on red. People don't, it's become where you sort of slow down for your right turn on red. So I just wanted to add that. I have a long list, so I don't want to get into that right now, but if there are other people, because I do have a couple of things.
I just wanted to comment on the speed limit on 2 areas of Springfield. One of them is by the community pool. So as you go east towards town and you're right at Ridgeview, the speed limit is 30. Now as you're going west, the same stretch of road, the speed limit is 35. And I would really like to see that addressed because that's a really busy intersection, especially summertime. The sign for 35 is all the way down where the State River runoff goes, where that bridge is. So it's 35 there, but it's 30 going towards town.
Yep.
So it didn't make sense as to how that was set.
So the 30 is to address the speed reduction. So Springfield Avenue was 35.
Yeah.
Speed reduction down to 30 going approach to the center. So, and this is an older way of thinking, this is why it was done. As you leave the center of town, you would ramp back up to 35, right?
Okay.
So is that the right answer now with increased traffic? And Should it all be 30? I don't know, that's,
Because we have that crossing to get to the park.
Yeah.
Which kids use.
To get to the
I use
community.
it every day to walk to the park,
Yeah.
right? So it's two different speed limits in the same part of the road. So that's one. The other is as you go out of town towards Berkeley Heights, the speed limit changes from 35 on Springfield to 40 right before McDonald's and Zeta's. So that's another area where you got a lot of traffic, foot traffic, kids during the summertime at both places. You know, in the interest of traffic safety, I think it should be consistent there, 35 or even lower as you go through that intersection. Why make it 40? Why increase the speed?
valid point. I think our initiative on Central Avenue was to make it consistent, especially through the business and industrial part of it, to jump over to South Street, except when you get more residential down on the dead end side. So to make it consistent outside of the school zones, some other reasons why we have, I don't think it's a difficult task to try and do that. It's definitely something we'll put on the list.
Yeah, if you would please look into those two areas.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Did you have anything? No?
I do have,
Should I get a seat? Can I take a seat?
I'm sorry?
Can I take a seat?
Yeah, and you're welcome to take a seat, or I might stand. There's something I may stand for. I want to talk about the complete streets. In 2013, the council adopted the complete streets policy. And they said, in the future, we're going to do complete streets. In 2017, at the master plan review, the recommendation came through by the group that the town should adopt a complete streets policy, which they had already done in 2013. 2018, you had the study done by the, I forgot their name here, the Trans Options did a study. And in that study in 2018, they recommended that the town should adopt a complete streets policy. Now, remember that policy was adopted in 2013. In 2021, this document that you're talking about recommends implementing the complete streets policy. In January of 2022, the council adopted a complete streets policy. What I'm getting at is, if we just would adopt, actually do it, the complete streets policy, including the recommendation that you have a complete streets task force consisting of citizens and people, if you would do that, then we would recognize the complete streets. They basically say, we recognize that the streets are there for everyone. They are there for the vehicles. They are there for the bicycles. They're there for the strollers. They're there for the wheelchairs. They're there for everyone. They are not conduits to get the larger and larger vehicles, mostly running on fossil fuels, bugaboo to me, of course, from one place to another as rapidly as possible. That's the way that the streets are looked upon right now. Adopt the complete streets. I think it's really important to do this because one of the things that's happening right now, and the reason that I ride my bike a lot, is that I have an electric enhanced bike and it's great. I love it. And it gives you a totally different perspective on things. I haven't been riding a bike in 20-something years, and now I'm on it all the time. Even last week when it was, oh my God, 55, I'm going to go on the bike. Anyway, what it gives you is a perspective. And that perspective tells me that it's really important to keep in mind the emerging technologies that are coming. I'm driving an e-bike now. And I'm on the road, I see people on scooters. I see people on various forms. I've even seen people on electrified skates. Not in New Providence, but in some towns. So these technologies are coming. They're not a bad thing because hopefully the intent is to do what I do, is come down and go to the store and put something I get in the bag and go home on my bicycle. And never even got the car out of the driveway. Of course, now I drive an electric car. But anyway, I think it's important for us to take into account these emerging technologies. Today on Springfield Avenue, I observed a young man on a scooter, fortunately wearing a helmet, traveling the wrong direction on Springfield Avenue. You gotta do something about that. It's really, really disruptive. On the bicycle, it's dangerous because I have to admit, I stop at every stop sign, just everything. When somebody's traveling the wrong direction, first of all, you're doubling the speed. If they're going 15 on that scooter and somebody's going 30 coming the other way, we're not having a 30-mile collision or a 25-mile collision, we're having a 40-mile collision because of the, I'm afraid it's going to happen. The other thing that, in terms of bicycles in particular, and from my observation, we've gone through the whole list. And in every one of those times that the complete streets was mentioned, and every one of those studies, it says we need to improve the bicycling infrastructure in the town, including signage, including perhaps lanes, including just being aware that the bicycles are there. I've been pushing this with the council off and on. We've been talking about this since 2013 as a priority to do it. I say just do it. The other thing is, I want to talk about one thing about safety in the bicycles. And this is a real quick one. I've mentioned this before at the council as well. In my career, I worked with people who had head injuries. Many of those people I worked with head injuries resulted from their being on bicycles or what have you, or vehicles like that where they did not have a helmet. First of all, if you go out without a helmet, I can tell you the term for, what's a person that rides a bicycle without a helmet, and when they say an organ donor, they're right. I can tell you that from experience and from working, and if they're not an organ donor, they're with me at Children's Specialized Hospital as a quadriplegic. It's only a matter of time until it's going to happen in this town, because this is an unfortunate thing. You're familiar with this, of course, this document. This is the 2021 New Providence Traffic Circulation and Improvement Plan. On page, I think it's 16 or whatever, I don't have the page number here, there are 4 children riding bicycles in front of the salt box. 4 of the 5 young ladies, obviously under 17 years of age, do not have helmets on. This is in your document from the police. I look at this and I say, it's just any one of these could end up in Children's Specialized Hospital any minute. It doesn't take very much. Dr. Diamond, who was the head at Children's Specialized, had a helmet that was broken in half on his desk and told everyone, this would have been my head when I was hit by a car on my bicycle, but because I had this on, I'm here talking to you right now. He was working in a hospital where some of the children that were there didn't have that helmet on. I know that it's people say to me when I say this, and I hate it, they say, oh, I can't get my child to do it. Oh, I can't do it. I say, take the bicycle away from them. You don't understand. When it happens, you're going to kick yourself for the rest of your life. When your budding 15-year-old child who was going to be the football star for the Pioneers was hit by a car and landed on his head on the street, and he's now a quadriplegic.
I can tell you that we just, not to interrupt you, but we do, our officers do the best that we can from an education standpoint. it's very common for our officers to engage kids riding helmets that are unstrapped to put them in. We do events at the schools in order to refit. We do the bicycle rodeo, which is an education campaign by us. So, you know, we're one cog in the bigger picture. We try our best to educate. I mean, it's never ending, right? Because as soon as that young student moves on, there's another student coming in. So the education campaign never stops, and we definitely, devote some
You
resources.
do more than just the third grade now, because all that you mentioned in the documents are that you do a third grade.
For the bike rodeo, that's the time when most kids are identified as being able to ride their bikes on their own, so that's why we target that.
Most of the ones without the helmets are 12 and 13 and 14. Those are the ones that I'm most worried about.
I'm not arguing with you on that.
I
I struggle with my own kids that get them the right helmets, and they understand we were unfortunate, we're fortunate to have a family member who suffered a head injury due to a skateboarding accident, but regardless of that, it was a learning experience for them to wear their helmets. But before that, they didn't want to. I'm not blaming them. It's just part of my job as a parent to do that. I appreciate them up there.
Yeah. I said it before the council at one time, and I don't think the police, that you should be going in and cuffing and putting the children in the back seat of the cruiser. But maybe when you see a group of them over at Starbucks and none of them have helmets and they're riding bikes, go over and say, listen guys, you understand, you're under 17. The law in this state says you need to wear a helmet. I don't want to see you again, or I'm going to have to do something about it. You know? Even that would be plenty. I know that I'm not trying to criticize you. I have some passion for my experience.
You have some other issues, sir?
I think that, is there a plan to get the Complete Streets Task Force in place? It's recommended more than once, so.
It's in our plan, and we're going to work towards it.
I didn't see it in the plans for the 2020.
Well, that was a highlight. I mean, it's part of the overall track. So the document that you're holding is, we're talking about a revision to that exact same document. We're not creating something else, we're revising. So if it's in there, the things that they're hard targets, the things that, can.
The thing that's not in here is the bicycle infrastructure.
So that's a council issue. I don't want to blame the mayor or, Councilwoman, I'm saying like, that's a difficult.
I'll be in to see you about it.
I know that you know that that's difficult in a town with an infrastructure set the way we are. I mean, anybody who's been down the shore knows, if you've been on the Barrier Island, as you can drive through Lavalette and have, a bike lane, and that bike lane disappears as soon as you get to Bayhead, right? Because the road narrows out and the infrastructure's not there to have it, so. Because there's a lot of regulations. Go ahead.
Follow-up.
Yeah.
Just one quick question I thought of. Hawthorne Road, Drive, I guess. I have a middle school that walks home sometimes. Any plans for sidewalks on that street to go from Hawthorne down towards Jones?
As of right now, no.
Okay.
What's that?
That's on the,
That's on the
Safe
safe routes to school.
safe roads to
Oh,
school.
safe routes to school. That's part of the next
It's
grant.
one of the
No, we
programs we're working with.
were given
Congress
that.
with right now.
Great.
That might have already gotten a grant or the
It already has a grant.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good.
Problem solved.
I think that's the,
Just to put
You
your
don't have to
mind a little bit at ease, my kids are older now, but for somebody who has ridden their bike to school like every single day, because his birthday is August, so he never drove, they don't go the main streets. They go all the back roads, and as parents, we tell the kids to go the less traffic roads, because we can, because we're so small. So that happens more than you actually think. So if you're only going the main streets for walking and riding bikes, all the kids that I know, they don't ride their bikes on the main streets to get to the schools and stuff. At least ones that count, yes.
I just have
I have pictures of children on side roads just riding their bikes right in front of the cars and things, so it's just.
I have two different follow-ups. One is, as a parent to 12-year-olds, I mean, I feel like I'm put on your helmet, put on your helmet. And I don't know a single parent that is not stressing that at home. But 12-year-old boys and 7th and 8th graders can be real jerks, and they think they just know it all, right? So they're gonna go do things outside, and as part of our community, I mean, we all parent each other's kids as well. Like, I will tell on your kid if I see a whole bunch of them, without helmets. If I know a parent, I will let them know. And I hope that people tell me if they see my kids. But I think that 7th grade and 8th graders could really be sort of some scared, straight targeting that needs to happen for sure, because they are the bulk of the kids that are out there with their, not wearing helmets, especially in the summer, like coming from the pool. They're just not ready.
I just want to say that one of the great programs that the police department does do is in the spring and summertime, they do hand out the gift cards to kids who are wearing their helmets and who are doing the right thing. And it's taking a positive approach to enforcing the helmet wearing, as opposed to steer straight.
But I feel like, it's great. I just feel like there's some psychology to the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who are really the bulk of the kids that are doing some of the crazy stuff. And I agree, my kids are always on the back and then zipping in and out of like the inner streets. The other thing I wanted to mention about, or rather wanted to bring up, now, Springfield, I know that South, for example, has a lot of like in and out, right? We have lots of driveway. Is there any way to streamline some of that? For example, the entrances into Barth and exits are multiple. The entrance into Dr. Turana, the bank, there's like multiple in and out. Like, is there any way to streamline it to make them less? For example, the bank, right? TD Bank.
I can answer that.
There's an entrance and exit on one side, and an entrance and exit on the other side.
The problem is private property. So we have no control over private property. Years ago, Steve Madonna and I tried to do that. We got all the landowners together and do exactly what you said. And we had an agreement, and we were getting, actually, it was going to add 82 parking spaces. It was all set up, and then I left office, and somebody else came in. Next thing you know, there was a building made in the center of the parking lot. And then all the other landowners said, we're out. So, unfortunately, it's private property, and we have no control over private property. People, though, you go by Ricordi's, it's supposed to be enter and exit by M&M. People don't even look at that. The sign could be right there, and they don't pay attention. How many times you see people going in the exit of the diner, right? And even over by Adams, people are going in the exit, and right there it says exit. People just don't pay attention, unfortunately.
What about down in Berkeley Heights, like by Chase, and even further down where exits from the shopping mall strip area? They have a left turn only kind of zones where they angle their exits out, so it's impossible.
Right turn.
Sorry, right
Right
turn
turn.
only, where it's impossible to make a left turn, like, or they also have, like, for example, when you come out of Chase, that one exit that's on Springfield, you can only make a right, you cannot make a left. It says that, and they make it sort of difficult with some of the lighting. So you feel bad if you even attempt to make a left there, I don't know if that's something.
But think about the Village Shopping Center, which is like the biggest issue, right?
Yeah.
Because of the multi-street.
There's no
exit.
way to.
You can't restrict a left turn lane, a left turn out of there, out of all your exits, or else no one's ever gonna be able to go home, right? So left-hand turns for people who are going west or going up the hill, at some point have to get out of that property. So the best way is, we had discussed, when I was on the planning board, when Starbucks was going in, there was some discussion about restricting the left turn lane, the left turn out of the Starbucks lot onto Springfield Avenue. The planning board didn't adopt it, right? They didn't feel it was necessary at the time. And realistically, it's really, really difficult to impose later on because it is a private property restriction that usually is subjected to some sort of variance, right? So if you don't get it at the inception, good luck trying to get it, ask a property owner to say like, hey, we want to restrict turning on your property. Like, no. Like, it's just, they're gonna say no to us.
And we have put some of those in, so when they redid where Juice House is, that's a no left turn. Investor Savings is a no left turn, but like everybody here has said, it's private property and, when you start restricting access to and from someone's property, it's not as easy as you think. A lot of times they have avenues too to, whether it be, legal side of it, they can get that side involved. And when they say, hey, you're restricting 50% of my customers from coming into my property or leaving my property, it's difficult.
I just had a question about South Street in relation to what the gentleman said who left a little while ago. I realize we're not here brainstorming these things or resolve them. I just want to get a sense of the process. If the town were to decide that one way to mitigate people running across playing, chicken on South Street, pedestrians, is to implement another crosswalk like the one you have by OLP, which I think works great. It has the lights, the guards there. I think that's like a success story on South Street. If the town were to decide to put another one of those in, do you need to work in conjunction with the county to implement that because of the county road, even though it connects two sides of the same town?
Yeah.
Okay, so then that would involve the county engineer in the decision-making process. And
The approval of a mid-block crosswalk.
okay, so when you did that at OLP, at where Gales comes out over by the bridge where OLP is, do you have any ballpark sense of how long it took before the town decided to implement a crosswalk there and when it was actually installed?
Well, I can tell you, I've worked here for 23 years, and that was here 23 before I got here.
That was here when I was a kid.
flashers were new, the crosswalk was
Yeah,
there.
flashers, all right,
Yeah.
so nobody here who's,
The crossing guard is there to identify a school crossing,
right,
right, so during the school hours, that's why we have that crossing there for people that were walking to OLP and the ones that traverse that property to go to the high school.
right, okay, and so does that mean that if another crosswalk were to be installed, what would, as a citizen, how could I request that as something that the town could look into? What's the mechanism for requesting another crosswalk on South Street?
Yeah, so there was a request, I want to say, maybe 3 years ago on Springfield Avenue at Saltbrook Road, crossing Springfield Avenue. That crosswalk, as considered a mid-block crosswalk, didn't exist. So the discussion from the residential community there that asked for it, articulated the fact that they couldn't get from the north side of Springfield Avenue, in theory, because you have to walk all the way down to Central or all the way down to the center legally, because there's no mid-block crosswalk. So something like that isn't like, it's not an issue until it's an issue, right? So until somebody brings it up and we're like, there's a huge gap that functionally has a legal right of way, that crosswalk has a legal right of way when somebody's standing on that curb to cross, as opposed to somebody standing on the curb where there's no cross, and then they just try and jaywalk, right? So we identified it, saw the need for it, sought county approval, and put the crosswalk in.
And do you know, and that took how long from beginning to end?
I would say probably from infancy to death is probably 6 months.
6 months.
And then that all that can tie into weather conditions, if there has to be improvements made, the ADA compliance with the crosswalk, with the landings on both sides of the street, curb cuts. So it's not just about painting on the roadway and walking out. You have to make it compliant for ADA.
Right, understood. So what I'm asking is, how would that process be initiated? You said that it was a community of homeowners. Is that?
They want the council.
Okay.
I mean, you can come to us.
Okay.
You can also put in an action line request and direct it, and
Action line request,
direct it right to the traffic bureau.
Okay. So that's something that's on the traffic bureau.
Our website, you'll see, I think it says, I think it literally
It's
says
action
action
line,
line.
yeah.
You click on it, and then there's a drop-down menu, who do you want to send this to, and you choose who to send it to.
Okay.
And we would turn it right over to the county because it's on a county road.
Okay. But
So, I
best
mean,
case scenario, you've seen it happen in 6
Yeah.
months. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's encouraging.
All right, seeing no more hands, I make a motion to close the meeting. So moved. I appreciate everybody's input. This stuff's valuable, so clearly if you have, my contact information is on the website. Feel free to email me at any time if you have concerns, and we'll definitely do our best to address them. But in the meantime, we want to make this a yearly event and come back and celebrate our successes, get input from the town. And it's not just a one-time, issue here. We're here to do our best because it's the traffic situation in New Providence I think it's just going to continue to grow, right? We all know that. So we have to make smart decisions in order to improve all that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.